Welcome to Medicine, Motherhood and Missions, the podcast where we dive deep into impactful and inspiring conversations with amazing professionals who've turned their challenges into stepping stones for success. I'm Johanna, your host, and each time we meet, we'll explore the stories and journeys of remarkable individuals who are PAs, doctors, professionals, mothers, and mission-driven changemakers, from the halls of the hospitals to the hearts of our homes, and into the communities we serve. Join us as we uncover the challenges, triumphs, and everything in between, and see life through each other's perspective. If you're seeking fulfillment in your career and life, I've got something special for you too. Download our free guide on how to be a fulfilled provider. It's packed with tips and insights to help you thrive while balancing the many hats you wear. And for all those parents out there dreaming big while raising little ones, check out Little Evie's Big Dreams children's book series, available now on Amazon. These heartwarming stories inspire kids to chase their own dreams, just like you're chasing yours. So grab your favorite cup of coffee or tea, settle in, and get ready for uplifting conversations that will leave you inspired and equipped to make a greater impact. Let's jump in. Hi, friends. I'm so excited to have today Dr. Elsa Tenney. She's a friend, and she has so many new upcoming things that it's really interesting what she's delving into. And I've had the pleasure of getting to know Dr. Elsa over the last couple of years, all of a sudden. And, we just met randomly and created a friendship. And she's such a special person. And I'm so pleased to have her here on the podcast. She is a medical doctor. She was born originally in New Delhi, India, but raised in New York, grew up in New York. She went to medical school in Debrecen, Hungary, and since then has been working as an adjunct professor for almost 17 years in various health sciences. She also has helped create a co-op for homeschool families through her church. And she's also pursuing a master's degree in healthcare administration, while also writing 2 books soon to be published. So, Elsa, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I'm happy to have a conversation with you because I know you've got a lot of life journeys and things you've gone through that I'm sure will be an inspiration and encouragement to other women out there.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's exciting.
Yeah, thank you so much. So let's start off with, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in medicine and, so many things after that. So just start with a little bit at a time.
Yeah. So I don't think I've always wanted to go to medical school. It's just something that you see very commonly in our culture. And that's some of the things that you were mentioning before about the pressures to perform and things like that. But, the Lord uses everything for his glory.
Yeah.
I found myself all the way across the ocean in Debrecen, Hungary, to go to a medical program there. And that's where I met my husband. And I spent 8, almost 9 something years off and on in school, coming back home, studying for the boards, all of those things. And that took my life in a completely different direction, out of the country, in an unfamiliar place, different language. Everything was brand new.
Yeah.
But, I got to travel a lot. I got to learn a lot. I got to learn a totally different culture and language. And I learned how to do medicine in Hungarian.
Oh, wow.
Because all the patients that we have are Hungarian. So it's a very different life experience that was just amazing and different than like the common life experience that I could have had here.
Right.
And that took me into the trajectory of medicine. And then I met my husband. We got married and moved back to the States.
Yeah. It's interesting how one decision can change your entire life outcome because it led you to marriage, which, changes your life forever. Yeah. And it's so fascinating how, I didn't realize, of course, you would have to learn Hungarian and speak it. So how did that make medical school is already hard. and difficult. So what level did that take you to?
I mean, our education was in English. It was the English program, English branch of the medical program. So we learned in English, but when it came to like clinical practice and treating patients and all the clinical experience, it was all Hungarian because our patients were all in Hungarian, or all Hungarians. And so that made it difficult. It made having a relationship with the patients difficult. So we kind of clung to each other. And so the friends that I have from Hungary, we are a very unique breed because we did a lot of life together, a lot of learning together. We were each other's families for so many years. And so it's like just different than just going to college with somebody, which also is a formative, impactful friendships that you can gain. But when you're out of the country and you don't have the ability to communicate with just anybody, you're like forced to bond with each other in a different way. So yes, it made medical school hard. It's already hard, but it made it hard. But the benefit of friendships and relationships that we got out of it, it was really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like whenever you go on an adventure with a group of people, you connect in such a deeper level than you would just, meeting up at a restaurant for, a coffee.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially you're isolated from your family and friends. You can't just hop on a bus to get home. You're with these new group of people. And so you have to form those deeper connections, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's such a special thing. And that must have been like, even though you felt like probably you're having to leave the US to go to medical school away from your family, but it's brought about such wonderful benefits to your life in general, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. It's made it so much more colorful. I would have never been able to have those kind of experiences. Even being able to travel, as a student, we don't have a lot of money and you try to like scrounge up a couple of dollars or, use your loan money when you're not supposed to travel. So we did things very, very, affordably, but still the fact that we got to travel to multiple countries and hop on a train and go to a different country, you don't have that kind of experience here in the States necessarily. That's affordable for students,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. You had so many opportunities. So, how did that journey in medicine and then marriage, and how did, you end up in, back in the US, and how did everything go after that? Like, cause you started to have children, and that brought new journeys and new life experiences with your daughter. And I know you had discussed, that you had wanted to talk about how your daughter has had some hearing issues when she was born. And, how did that impact your life?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's actually kind of like a pivotal point in my life. Traditionally, when we go to medical school, it's a very long process, long journey. It eats up years and years of your life. And it's a long term commitment that you are making for that career path. So a lot of medical graduates are older moms because they spend most of their 20s in school or studying for the boards or doing residency, things like that. So I wasn't older when we got married. And so we wanted to have kids within a couple of years and stuff. And so when we started really struggling with infertility, that became the forefront of our concerns. And I was in the middle of studying and taking my boards and things like that. So we already struggled with infertility for like almost 2 years, a year and a half, something like that. And then when we finally did get pregnant with my daughter, and she was born bilaterally deaf. She had moderate to severe hearing loss, which progressed at 18 months to severe to profound hearing loss. And so she lost even more hearing. So they initially said, if you fire a gun next to her ear, she might be able to hear it. That's how much hearing loss she initially had. And so I knew that she was deaf, but it took a long time for me to accept that and for me to be okay with the Lord, be okay with my kid, the first time mom, my first child,
After struggling with infertility too.
After struggling with infertility, I never let myself enjoy the pregnancy. I never let myself enjoy anything because
you're worried.
Excuse me, it was
no problem.
Just clouded. It was clouded by this diagnosis, and this this lifelong thing that she would have to deal with, and that our whole family would have to kind of figure out how to have and live with a child that is deaf. We have no deafness in our family. None of us are signing. We're a speaking family, and so it was a very different and intense and unique experience. So once she came along, my desire to pursue the traditional medical career, it just kind of broke. And it had to, because of the amount of services that she needed, appointments that she needed, and things like that. Like it had to, I had to sever that kind of drive towards a medical career. Because for the next 5, 6, 7 years, I was her primary, caregiver, transporter, everything. And so that kind of changed. It was a very pivotal point in my life, and I struggled with that because I didn't meet that expectations that I set for myself, and that the community and my parents and everybody had set for me. So in so many ways, I looked around and it was just disappointment that I saw in myself, in my career path, even having a child with this lifelong disability. And I didn't really have a vision for her. I didn't know what she would ever become, what she could make of herself, because I think I was living in fear because I didn't have anything to give her. I didn't have any expertise in the field. I just could barely take care of her as a new mom. And we were also isolated in a small town. So not really a lot of support and things like that. So it was a pivotal point for us.
Yeah, I mean, going back to a little bit about the expectations and, career expectations that you were talking about as a South Indian woman and in the Asian community, like how do you feel like in regards to the expectations that we may place on ourselves or feel that our community has like to perform? And because it's interesting because we have been talking about like what it is to be a woman or a godly woman, or our purpose, and sometimes I feel like, or we all feel that there's that pressure, like to be a mother versus, our career. But I feel like in the South Asian community, whether you're a man or a woman, there's this pressure to educate yourself, first of all, pursue those, higher degrees and work hard and, perform well. Right. And so that even just like, and being a good mother too. So we have the demand and the pressure to educate ourselves, go for those higher graduate degrees, plus work and be a good mom and a good cook too.
Right. And be joyful and not complain while you're doing all those things. 100%. The pressure is intense. The expectations that are put on us and that we put on ourselves because that's the way we're raised. And it feels like if you don't perform those tasks and you're not good and successful at those things, then you're a bad mom, or, it's a shame. And you just don't bring shame on yourself. You bring shame on the family. You bring shame on the community. So I may not hear what people are saying or their comments. So, if she's not working as a, clinical practicing doctor or whatever, but my parents might hear it. So, and then I hear it from my parents. So the family is hurt by the societal expectations and the comments and things like that. So I think the pressure that's put, and you're right, it's for men and women, for them to work hard and provide and do all these things and be a good parent and be present at every event and ballet lesson and this and that. It's just, that's what our community does. But I feel like our generation can break off from that. And the next generation that are coming up, the younger generation, are even doing more things that are non-traditional and kind of breaking off from what the parents have put on us, the pressures that they have put on us.
Yeah. Because, I mean, sometimes people think of, I don't know, I feel like maybe that we are community focused, family focused, that our focus is more just, to be moms or things, but they don't understand that we have that self pressure to overperform, I think, and maybe prove ourselves in society too, in a way, maybe because of historical things that have happened in different various, eras of history, that we feel that desire to prove and show that we can do it all sometimes. And that's what, also our parents want us to educate ourselves and work, not just be a mom, but we do have that pressure, interestingly enough, to be working moms, right?
Absolutely.
Not just moms at home and, family only, right? It's interesting how when you look at the Asian community, it's working moms. Usually that's what the pressure is, to get the education, get the degrees, and, working moms. And so
yes,
it's interesting
absolutely.
that
We're expected to do all of that. And one of the things that the Lord has been teaching me in that area is my identity. My identity has been so wrapped up in what I do, and how much money does that make? How much do I put on the table? Like, that's equivalent to success. That's equivalent to my worth. Now, nobody ever said those words to me. Nobody ever sat me down and said, you are worth what you do and how much money you make. Nobody ever said that. But that is the idea. That is what's been passed on, from the comments of the community or the pressures of the family, things like that. And then it's proven, because when you don't perform and you don't meet those expectations, the shame that is carried by the family and the shame that I myself carry from that is so intense and so heavy, that just proves that, yes, my identity has been wrapped up in what I do and me performing a certain way and the expectations that I put on myself. So in these past years, the Lord has been really showing me and redefining my identity, finding my identity in Christ, who I am in Him, that I'm complete and I am whole, and I can only do what He has called me to do. He chose me to give a deaf child to, that I have to be faithful to. And that is my primary calling. So everything else has to be on the back burner. Now, in those seasons, it was difficult. I struggled with the Lord for years, but eventually, looking back, I can see that the Lord really was protecting our relationship, mine and hers, and even her growth and development, because she's 13 now. And I have to tell people that she's deaf, because she doesn't have a deaf speech. She doesn't have like lateralization of speech. She doesn't have anything that indicates that she's deaf. People don't even realize that she's wearing cochlear implants. And without them, she is completely a deaf person. And so when I see that and I have to actually tell people that she's deaf, I thank the Lord, because that is the first couple of years of early intervention that we did with therapies and surgeries and things like that. So, God is sovereign over all these things. And even when we feel like things are overwhelming and we want to perform a certain way, God is sovereign over that. And I have learned to rest in that and not put that pressure on myself, and not to take somebody else's pressure onto myself.
Yeah. And I know it was a struggle in the beginning, but you somehow were able to realize that your focus is on your daughter. And I think that came out of need because of the amount of care she needed. But somehow you did put her first in trying to make sure that she was fully taken care of. And I've met your daughter, and it is amazing. And I honestly wouldn't have known she was having any hearing issues. And I saw, she's now playing in her school orchestra
I
and
know. Yes.
and so many things like that, which is
Yes.
really remarkable and a testimony
Yes.
to how much
Mm-hmm.
care and compassion and effort you have put forward as a mom,
Mm-hmm.
and setting aside those, pressures and demands of culture and community, right? Even though it was hard at first, but um, yeah, and as you said, that's what we have as Christians, we have to realize our identities are in Christ, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, so many people I think are realizing that even if they're not, Christian, they're realizing, I think, the identity that we find in just our jobs, our salaries, our status quo
Mm-hmm.
in society is not really that important in life.
Mm-hmm.
And what's most important in life is what really brings us full and good meaning to our lives,
Mm-hmm.
purpose,
Exactly.
but not a demanding purpose, but something that can give us some kind of peace. And as
Yeah.
Christians, we know that that is in Jesus Christ alone,
Mm-hmm.
because we can't find any other peace in this world other
Mm-hmm.
than through
Absolutely.
peace
One
and
of the
faith.
things that finding your identity somewhere else
Mhm.
is it's temporary. It's not going to
Mhm.
last and it's not going to fulfill you like you
Mhm.
thought. And so I think that's where, when you mentioned so many people are finding that their identity is in Christ, or they're looking for their identity, is because the
Mhm.
things that they put their identity in, we all do, is
Mhm.
in temporary things
Yeah.
that don't really fulfill us. And it's like
Mhm.
eating empty calories, and
Yeah.
you're so hungry, but you're eating empty
Mhm.
calories. So you kind of feel full, but you don't feel good. It's not a
Mhm.
good full,
Yeah.
versus if you ate a nutritious meal. So I kind of
Mhm.
describe it like that, where it's not really a healthy feeling when you put your identity in something that's going to diminish in time,
Mhm.
and diminish in worth, and it's not going to really give you anything.
Mhm. Or it's like, I was listening recently to another um, person on purpose. It's like getting on those achievement treadmills or purpose goals where you
Mm-hmm.
achieve those things, you get that degree, you get that job, you get that success, you feel happy for a moment, then it's passes, and then you're like, what next, right?
Yes.
And so
Yeah,
it
exactly.
those things never will give a true um, peace or happiness that lasts forever, because it's always
Mm-hmm.
just going to be one more thing that you have to knock off on
Mm-hmm.
your goal list of goals, or something
Mm-hmm.
else that needs to be done, another thing. And I think that's what,
Mm-hmm.
even, since we're both South Asian, talking about that community and cultural expectations, there'll always be something else to prove. There will
Yeah,
always be something
exactly.
else to kind of show that, you're, succeeding in, or something else that
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to, show off, or, in the
Yeah.
end, it
Yeah.
is kind of showing off, and,
Yeah.
do we really need to,
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself, whose
Yeah.
approval are we really seeking? Are we
Exactly.
seeking the
Mhm.
approval of a community that is never
Mhm.
really going to be satisfied? Like you said,
Yeah.
when you accomplish one thing, either you didn't do it right, or there's going to
Mhm.
be, okay, that's great, but here's the next thing that
Mhm.
so and so is doing. So they're never going to be satisfied. So whose
Mhm.
approval are we actually seeking? And if we
Exactly.
keep our focus
Mhm.
on just proving ourselves to the Lord, you're
Mhm.
never going to fail, because
Yeah.
he's never going to be disappointed in you
Mhm.
trusting and depending on him, no
Mhm.
matter what the results are of your
Yeah.
efforts, no matter
Mhm.
what goals you've set and you've met or
Mhm.
not met. The results don't matter when you're walking with the Lord and you're walking
Mhm.
hand in hand in his purpose. It doesn't actually matter what ends up, because
Mhm.
it's all going to be worked towards good.
Yeah.
So the pressure for you to perform is completely
Mhm.
off the table. And
Yeah.
I think having that relief, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like
Yeah.
resting in the Lord
Mhm.
and knowing that I'm only here to please the Lord. And
Yeah.
he's already pleased with me because of Christ. So
Yeah.
there's no losing when you're with the
Yeah.
Lord.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of our having faith in Jesus, is because, we take that pressure off ourselves, and we know it's not work based. We don't have to please God with how
Exactly.
good we are. We don't have
Yeah.
to please any, um, Jesus with how many good things we've done, how many things we've done right in our life. It's simple faith that takes
Yeah.
all the pressure off of ourselves, and
Exactly.
we rest in that, as you
Hmm.
said, and that's how we find our identity in Christ Jesus, because we realize that we can never be perfect. Our lives are not going to be perfect. We're
No.
going to go through struggles. We're going to have
Hmm.
challenges that we never wanted,
Yeah.
but we face them with a peace that only God can give us to go
Exactly.
through those things
Hmm.
and rest in what life brings, right? Through Christ Jesus.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, um, speaking of all this, like, so I know you were talking about you made the decision to focus on your kids and going through Maya's, hearing difficulties, but she's so amazing at what you've done and how she's grown and how she's done. So, just to put it out there, like, what resources did you use or could you recommend for those who have kids with hearing needs?
We were with Hearts for Hearing since
Mm-hmm.
she was, gosh, 4 months old, 2 months
Mm-hmm.
old, something like that, like very, very young.
Okay.
And so we have a long-standing relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
They have been instrumental in not just her growth and development, but my
Yeah.
growth and development as a
Yeah.
mom. Because
Uh-huh.
in our early diagnosis, man, I was so sad, and
Mm-hmm.
I think I was partly depressed, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to handle the news.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like whenever I would introduce my child, I would say, "This is Maya, she's deaf," as if being deaf was her last name. And I did that constantly until her speech therapist said, she's perfectly normal. She
Yeah.
just has a condition that we're going to work with, and we're going
Yeah.
to do the best that we can.
Mm-hmm.
And I never saw her deafness separate from who she is. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that's a part of who she is, and that's going to be a part of her story.
Mm-hmm.
But for me as a mom, it really took them
Mm-hmm.
speaking truth into me to see her as
Mm-hmm.
a person, as an individual, and then see her deafness as an illness, something like we're trying to correct,
Yeah.
and giving her the best resources that we can to
Mm-hmm.
correct it. And plus, it's
Yeah.
a part of who she is, and I
Yeah.
want her to be not ashamed of that either.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a journey, but they have been
Yeah.
instrumental in our lives.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up since we're talking about identity. Like, even what we're identifying in our lives, can be our jobs, careers, things, but sometimes we identify our negative experiences with ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
how healthy
Mm-hmm.
is that, and yeah, her deafness is a part of her, and that's her community and things that she'll have as her story. But are we, like you were saying, in a way, it was you were identifying it as her soul identity and just as something to you were kind of coping with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so even
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
uh,
And I would also encourage anyone out there
mhm,
who has a child with a disability,
mhm,
whether it's being deaf or any type of physical ailments or disability, reach out for a community
mhm,
that you can find support in. And that's one of
mhm,
the things I really lacked in my early years. It was just me and her. And I just felt so
mhm,
alone. And when you are
mhm.
so alone like that, you just
Yeah.
kind of end up repeating these lies in your mind over and
Mhm.
over again, and you don't know what the truth is. So to you, that's
Yeah.
your truth, right? Like,
Mhm.
I'm alone. How am I going to do this? Like, she doesn't have a
Yeah.
future. And those are not true.
Mhm.
Your child does have a future. They
Yeah.
are created by the Lord, and He did not
Yeah.
make a mistake by making her deaf.
Yeah.
It is a part of a sinful and fallen world, and she
Yeah.
will be completely restored in heaven. But right now, we can do what we can with the
Mhm.
resources that we have to help her be the
Yeah.
best version of herself, to help
Mhm.
other people, and to give glory to
Yeah.
God, as long as she's on in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. Every person has a purpose,
Absolutely.
not a pressure, but has a unique individual gift to share with this world, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone does. And so we can't limit ourselves by a negative identity. We can't limit ourselves with a negative thought process, but we have to realize those gifts are there, and no matter who we are, we all have that ability
Yeah.
to share and shine, right? Um, how so? Then you're focused on your kids. Then
Yeah.
you start teaching. So you still
Yes.
are growing. You're still doing stuff. How did you get into that?
I started being an adjunct professor years and years ago. I just
Mhm.
realized how long ago it was when I sent you that the kind of information. But it was a way for me to use my knowledge, but in a very flexible way where I'm
Mhm.
not committed to a contract. I'm not committed to a full-time job because
Mhm.
I could not have, she was my full-time job.
Yeah.
And I remember I didn't have any family or any
Yeah.
help
Mhm.
when we were in that small town. So,
Yeah.
um, really that's how I got into it. And I have always loved teaching. So once I
Mhm.
got into it and I saw how flexible it was, I just kind of continued that every
Yeah.
time I could. And it was off and on. There's a year and a half that I kind of took off when I had my son and things like that, or
Uh-huh.
I was really big and really pregnant where I couldn't drive or something. But, I've been teaching for a long time and I absolutely love it. And I
Yeah.
really appreciate the flexibility that it has given me.
Mhm.
I never appreciated myself in it. I never gave myself enough credit until a friend of mine, like a couple of
Mhm.
years ago, said, this is a career. Like, this is what you've been doing. So it is a career. Because I would
Yeah.
always say, oh, I never had a career. I never got a chance to have a medical career. I started
Mhm.
off with hundreds of my colleagues and they're all
Mhm.
doing, most of them are doing traditional route and
Mhm.
practicing.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm not. And I
Mhm.
always put myself down, I
Yeah.
never accomplished this. I never did. And
Mhm.
those kind of negative thoughts about myself until she pointed that out. And I thought, wow, I have been doing this for a very long time. I have made
Yeah.
a career out of it. It hasn't been a full-time job, but it has gotten me to use the knowledge that I have. It's gotten me to use and do what I love to do.
Mhm.
And I get to come home and take care of the kids
Yeah.
because my husband's schedule is so busy and
Mhm.
hectic. And
Yeah.
so it has worked for my benefit. So I
Mhm.
stopped talking negatively about this career path that I
Mhm.
had actually chosen
Yeah.
and enjoyed. And really, I felt like I was called to it.
Yeah.
But again, it was based on the expectation of what is
Mhm.
success. How do you
Yeah.
define being successful or
Mhm.
having a job that is reputable and respected in the community? And this was not it. This
Yeah.
was not, hey, I'm going to teach because I have a day of the week that I'm free. That's not reputable in our culture. And so it's South Indian culture. But with counseling and with God's help, I started shifting my mind towards
Yeah.
that thinking. And no, that's not true. I have
Mhm.
made a career out of it.
Yeah.
But that's how I got into it. And the Lord has just really been changing my heart towards so many things
Yeah.
in these past couple of years.
Yeah. It's interesting how much those cultural expectations can make such a huge impact in our way of living and perspectives.
Yeah,
Even though, we have learned about ourselves and kind of trying to, in a God focused way, try to, leave those expectations, find our identity in Christ Jesus. But those things still kind of stigmatize us, right? And
absolutely.
still kind of in the back of our heads, we're like, no, we're not successful because we're not whatever the world is telling us that we have to
Yes.
be. But
Hmm.
that's the thing, like, and what I've seen in a lot of these conversations is our journeys are not just straightforward. And success is not one way. It's so many different ways. And it doesn't, and success is not, what the world standard is either, right? It's whatever we
Absolutely.
feel that is peaceful and joyful in our lives, that is glorifying God, right? Um,
Absolutely.
and so it's interesting to see that even though you were teaching, you were using your gifts and talents, you were using your medical knowledge, but you still felt you hadn't
Yeah,
reach
absolutely.
success because it wasn't the traditional route. But
Right. Hmm.
yeah, it's something that it's still prevalent in the community and still prevalent in society, but we have to kind of get out of this like achievement cycle, or where we're just trying to prove to other people, like, what are we trying to prove to others,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I know.
What are we
Yeah,
trying to prove?
I describe myself as, over the years, I've described myself as a hamster on a wheel.
Yeah,
You just work and work and work, but I go nowhere. I
yeah,
accomplish nothing. I have nothing to show. That's how
yeah,
I used to say about myself, because if you look at, a paycheck, I don't have a lot to show compared to my husband. Or if I look at a full-time job, I don't, or if I look at my resume, it's not as, big and intense as other people's, but that's not what I need to use as a comparison. Actually, I shouldn't compare myself to anybody. I have to
hmm,
run my race, the one that God has set before
hmm,
me. I'm taking care of children. I'm working when I can. I'm actually doing something I love to do, which is teaching.
hmm, yeah,
And how many people actually love their jobs? I don't know. I don't know. You to find somebody who's actually in a field that love their jobs, that's also
yeah,
unique. So I have to
hmm,
remember and thank God for those things that He
hmm,
has given me, that I was just blinded to, because I was putting this pressure
yeah,
on myself to be something that He's never called me to be.
hmm, yeah. And that's kind of why I started this podcast, because I feel like, sometimes it's so freeing to hear other people's journeys and other people's stories, that show that different perspective, that out of the box type of thinking, and that freedom that we can find in our stories, right?
Hmm.
Because otherwise we just get stuck in our little bubbles and little
Exactly.
perspectives,
Hmm.
and just hearing these other journeys and other stories, what other people have gone through, kind of shows us that, life's journey doesn't have to be just like, one way. God has
Exactly.
a way of making everything beautiful in our lives, no matter what
Hmm.
we go through, whatever we face. The
Yes.
steps are, challenging at times, easy at times, not so great at times, but
Hmm.
it all leads us to his plan and purpose for our life. Um,
Absolutely.
so, um, how did you like balance motherhood and teaching and life? And, how did this co op start too?
Our co-op started in 2020 with COVID,
Hmm.
and when everything else was shutting down, like 99% of our church family homeschools.
Uh-huh.
Us and maybe one other family was probably the non-traditional, like non-homeschoolers. My daughter was in private school. My son was only 2.5, so he was home with us.
Hmm.
So when everything shut down, we were just talking about, why can't we still get together,
Hmm.
and sure, we can't open it up to the community or anything like that, because at that time there was all these closures and everything,
Hmm.
but we still wanted to get together, and i and
Uh,
i and I love teaching. And so
yeah,
this is where the Lord shows me, like, see,
yeah,
I'm naturally bent towards
hmm,
wanting to educate. That is
yeah,
just a natural
hmm,
gifting, a natural bent that I have. And
hmm,
so when COVID shut things down, a couple of my friends and I were talking, and we
hmm,
had been talking about homeschooling, and things like that. And so
uh-huh,
when we started talking, I said, why can't we do it here? So that idea came up, and
hmm,
we, three of us, got together the summer of 2020 and built the skeleton for this co-op,
yeah,
and classes and students and how it would work and where we would meet and all that
hmm,
stuff. And we presented that to our church, and our church has been so wonderful. They just let us use their facilities,
hmm,
and so we were able to keep our costs very, very low.
hmm,
And so we just open it to our church families because it's free from our church. And so that's how that came about. But again, it's just the Lord just put that in my path and
hmm,
allowed me to be a part of this creation.
hmm,
And it, again, I can look back and see look at the gifting that the Lord has for you. Like,
Yeah.
so I look back and I'm like, yes, of course I'm attracted towards education. That's what I do. That's what I love.
Uh-huh.
So, and the organizing part, the administrative part of it, things like that.
Mhm.
So it came about from a time of need,
Mhm.
but really the Lord put it in a couple of our hearts to build something so we can still
Yeah.
provide education to our kids, where
Mhm.
most of them, their co-ops had, the ones they were involved in had either closed or something like that.
Yeah.
And we said, well, we don't have to close because our church is allowing us to remain open. So we don't have
Mhm.
to close.
Yeah.
And we continued. And it's, we're going on our 6th year in the
Oh,
fall.
wow. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, it just goes to show like you have that gift and talent towards teaching, and that kind of naturally, flowed for you from, teaching in, um, health sciences, and now teaching or helping kind of create the homeschool co-op for
mhm.
kids. And so it's interesting how we kind of sometimes feel like this is not where I'm supposed to be, or I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be doing something else. And we're like ignoring the fact that, wait, this seems to be maybe a gift I have, a strength I
Yes.
have. And we're
Yes.
focused on a strength we think we should have or a gift that we should have, instead of really evaluating and looking at ourselves and seeing what really are our strengths, what are
hmm
our
hmm
giftings, and kind of like taking inventory of what we naturally have, right? Because
hmm
we just want to maybe have the expectations of what other people think we should have,
Yeah.
right?
Or what a gift
Yeah.
should look like, or what we
Yeah.
should do in ministry and things
Hmm.
like that. But
Yeah.
really, what the gift that you have is, what do you find yourself doing
Hmm.
often? What do you
Yeah.
find yourself leaning towards often? That's your
Hmm.
calling. That's your gift. And so
Yeah.
if you can hone in on that
Hmm.
and strengthen that, it becomes a ministry. It becomes a
Yeah.
calling.
Hmm.
And then you can build on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so now you're studying again, doing a master's in healthcare
That's part of
administration.
an identity issue. I do talk about it in my devotional of why I'm pursuing a master's. Currently, I just want to finish what I started.
Uh-huh.
But when I picked up this master's, I was
Yeah.
really struggling with the pressure of not accomplishing anything.
Hmm.
And I have nothing to show. I have all of this education. I have nothing to show. It's that mental battle and struggle of,
Hmm.
you didn't do anything with your life and you didn't become anything. And I hear it from the community. I hear it from just people around me that, oh,
Hmm.
you should have followed this path, XYZ, right? You should have. But who said that? Who
Yeah.
placed that for me, right? I don't think it was the Lord. I think it
Hmm.
was the culture.
Hmm.
And because of that, I put that on myself. And so when I started this master's program, I was actually thinking of doing a PhD. But thank goodness I didn't pursue that. I went to a master's. And then after that, while in class, is COVID, when COVID hit. So I kind of put a pause on it for a little bit, and then it picked up
Hmm.
again. Right now, I know that I don't need this degree to prove anything to anybody, to become anything. I
Hmm.
am satisfied in the Lord of what He has,
Yeah.
if He just tells me to wake up in the morning and, cook something and clean the house, I will be satisfied, or I pray that I will be satisfied.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm like 2 classes away from being done. So I am going to finish what I started.
Yeah.
But it began out of insecurity. It began out of
Hmm.
a decision based on, pressure that I placed on myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny you say that, because you already have a medical doctorate degree. You've been teaching college level classes. You've started co ops. And, it's so funny how we have these insecurities and feelings of inadequacies about ourselves when, other people looking at us may not see those things and be like,
Right.
wow, you're so successful, or you're doing such an amazing thing.
Right.
But we ourselves are perceiving ourselves in such a limited mindset, right?
Like nothing was good enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is good enough. And that's the mentality that I was
Mm-hmm.
living in. Nothing, I'm not good enough for anyone. I'm not good
Mm-hmm.
enough in anything I do, but nothing that I accomplish is ever good enough for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so living in that hamster wheel, it's
Yeah.
exhausting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, I mean, I'm really glad we had this discussion because this is something that, can keep on going on. Like we can discuss so many different things about just the, pressures of community and career expectations and having, and interestingly enough, having that pressure to be a working mom, and a good mom and a good worker bee. And it's interesting how much pressure we put on ourselves, that we also just take on from other people unnecessarily, when who are we proving ourselves to? People's opinions, do they really matter on our lives, on our children's lives? What are we
Mhm.
showing forth for our children? Like, what
Right.
examples are we setting for them when we show that we're always kind of having to, um, have other people's opinions make such a life directional impact in our lives,
Mhm.
or constant approval of others,
Right. Yeah.
is that necessary? And so hopefully that we can like learn to take those bondages off of ourselves,
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
and like remove that shame,
Mhm.
and just, sit in peace and rest in, um, what God wants for our lives,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
really look into our lives and see what are we gifted in, what are our strengths, not what we think other people want us to be, but what are we really strong in, or gifted in, that we can help
Mhm.
other people, be a blessing, use it for God's glory. And, that leads me to your books and your writing. And, you mentioned that you, as you were writing this, you kind of were realizing all those identity and, insecurities. And so how did that kind of come about?
Um, the Lord has been doing
Mhm,
some crazy work in me these past couple of years of healing, of emotional healing, just healing in different areas of my life. Like one of the chapters that I write about is identity, and I call it identity crisis, which I had.
mhm,
And um, so it's really, this book is my testimony.
mhm,
Um, and so it's personal, it's intense. It was intense to write it.
uh-huh.
It's intense to read it. I have a hard time editing it because I get stuck on the emotion and I have to work through those things again.
Yeah. Mhm,
The content is not for this podcast. That'll be for another one. But just like the faithfulness of the Lord,
mhm,
and so I always had a hard time sharing my story. I
mhm,
didn't know how much to include and what is my testimony.
mhm,
And in this journey of writing, the Lord has shown me how to share my testimony, but
mhm.
still make it about Him, where
Yeah.
my story doesn't get lost.
Mhm.
And I thought about writing a devotional for women back in 2020. I just had an idea, hey, I want to write,
Yeah.
but nothing came about it.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't pursue it. I didn't know how to start or where to go or anything.
Yeah.
But this past summer, I got the thought idea again. Okay, I think I'm just going to write some devos for our co-op.
Mhm.
We meet Tuesday mornings. I'll just read a little thing to them. Didn't pan out. Did not work. It blew up in my face because that's not what it was supposed to be.
Uh-huh.
And then I got stuck after writing one or two. I got stuck and I got so frustrated. And I asked myself, and I was in prayer. I was like, okay, why? Why do I want to write something? Like for this desire to be so pressing, there
Uh-huh.
has to be a reason behind it. So I asked the Lord to
Mhm.
show me. And I
Yeah.
started writing, and I started with the purpose of this devotional is to.
Uh-huh.
And I went 3 pages into what the purpose was behind this.
Uh-huh.
And once I wrote that, I realized, oh, this is not for the co-op, just for the co-op.
Yeah.
It's not just for it. I'm going to print this like
Mhm.
sometime. This is going to be published. Like this is for beyond this small
Mhm.
spectrum that I'm thinking so small for myself.
Uh-huh.
And this was the Lord just healing and
Mhm.
guiding and restoring so many things in my heart, in my mind. And I was able to put that on paper. I share personal experiences. I share excerpts from my journal, which is really scary to put it out there because it's just raw. And, I'm like, does that even make sense? I don't care. It needs to go in, it was that kind of journey. For that. And at the same time, I had this children's book that I wrote this years ago, and it was sitting on my computer.
Right. Yes.
And these two projects came out together, like in my brain. It's like I wanted to move forward. Like there was this intense desire to move forward in both of these. But I love how the Lord was like protecting my heart, because when the devotional got too heavy, I would work on the story. And I just realized, like, after I realized that, I thought, wow, God, thank you for protecting my story, this children's book that just sat on my computer for a few years. I mean, had I published it or went ahead with it, I wouldn't have had that to like catch me when I fall hard emotionally from this, because I did need to take a lot of breaks. And I'd be like, I'm so frustrated. I'm tired of crying. Be like, okay, let's look at some pictures and illustrations. Let's talk about this, because that's fun and easy. And so I really love how strategic the Lord was in keeping it for a time as this. So again, it goes to prove that God is sovereign over our stories, whether it's a painful one or whether it's a fun one. He's in it. And he'll protect both of them. He loves both of them. I feel like these are bookends to this journey. Not that my journey has ended in any way, but really this was so intense that it's like bookends to this experience. And as I was talking to a friend about this this devotional, she said, you've always written. And I said, what? She's known me since I was a teenager, since I was a kid. And she was my youth leader. And so I said, oh yeah, I do remember I wrote short stories and poems and things like that. I just had forgotten for 25 years. And so she actually saved a poem that I wrote and sent it to me. And I remember she had forced me to sign it. So I was like 16 or 15. I'm like, you're crazy. Why do you want me to sign it? This is dumb. But here I am in my 40s and I'm reading, and it was so heartwarming. It was so sad. Like the young girl who wrote that was really sad. And to see that in my 40s, God is answering the cry of that child's heart. It was really beautiful. So I feel like the Lord was in this process of writing, and it's like restoring back what I originally was supposed to be this whole time, but I just got lost for 20, 30 years, but this is what I feel like I was supposed to be doing. And I told a friend just a few weeks ago, probably around Christmas or something, she asked me, I had wrote a devotional for the our women's brunch. And she said, did you always write? And I said, at that time, I said, I don't know. But I always felt like, I dressed up for a beautiful wedding. I put on my makeup. I put on a beautiful wedding dress, and I'm walking down the aisle, and it's the wrong groom. It's the wrong wedding. It's a wrong venue. It's a wrong people. It's wrong. But this, I feel like I'm at the right wedding with the right groom, with the right people. Like, I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, that's what these projects felt like. I wasn't walking anybody else's shoes. I was walking in what God has for me. And I saw his hand all over it. For me to write something like that, I'm not a big writer or, fancy person or anything. I'm just like a regular mom with 2 kids, for me to write something in 2.5 months, enough to go forward and want to publish it and to share some of that stuff, like that has to be the Lord. Because the stuff that I share, it's not like something I can take pride in. It's shameful things, it's sad things, it's hard things, but it's things that I know that needs to be. And God has healed me and shown himself faithful. So I'm not sharing the shame part of it. I'm sharing the glorious part of it, that God is sovereign over that too. And he makes beauty truly out of ashes.
Yeah. I think that's like kind of our whole conversation has been like just what you're summing it up in that imagery of going after the wrong, or what we think is right, but we're marrying the wrong dream. We're marrying the wrong life journey thinking it's right.
Yes.
And then we realize
Because
that.
you look the part and you can walk the part and you can talk the part. It's just not yours.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's like, yeah, what are we really wanting to do in life, or that doesn't have the, you know, demands of culture or demands of society or pressures, but
Mm-hmm.
what is God calling us to? And it shouldn't be something that pressurizes us or brings more anxiety or more, insecurity, because we're like, oh my gosh, it has to be something amazing, but it's just resting in realizing that God has a purpose for our life. Everyone has something beautiful to offer into this world.
Mm-hmm.
It's just finding those little things that can take us on those journeys to finding meaning in what we do, and
Exactly.
something positive that we can give out that gives us peace. If we're just overperforming, overproving, and worried about what other people think, and that's why we're going towards this degree, this job, that job, it's a headache. It's so stressful, and we're just
Mm-hmm.
working on a hamster wheel trying to constantly prove ourselves. But when we let go of those responsibilities, or they're not even responsibilities, let go of those ideas,
Mm-hmm.
we find ourselves so much more at peace, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
letting go of unrealistic expectations and
yeah,
just holding on to God's expectations of you. And he said his
yeah,
yoke is light. His
yeah,
burden is light and his yoke is
mhm,
easy. So I want to
yeah,
hold on to the easy thing because I can't
yeah.
handle,
I
I
know,
want to
because
just do what he's called me to do.
yeah, because life is already so hard. I mean, you face
Exactly.
that going through with your newborn baby, first baby after infertility, and then having those, hearing challenges and all those things. Life is already hard. Why should we make it harder? Having unnecessary expectations on ourselves,
Exactly.
right?
Hmm.
And so, but God makes so many beautiful things through that. And, through your own journey, you've seen the beauty and grace and mercy of God. And we see that in that story. And leave us with one more encouraging word for others who, have children with difficulties. How would you encourage parents out there?
Yeah. Just trust the Lord and don't put so much pressure on yourself to perform a certain way. My son has other difficulties like lifelong things, ADHD and things like that, that makes communication with him really hard. You have to don't put so much expectation on yourself that he should perform, or my daughter or my son should perform like other kids, like you should perform as a mom, based on what you've seen or what other people expect of you. And sometimes we just want to make it through the day, and that is okay. It's okay for you to just make it through the day and say, I got today done, that's it. I don't know what I'm gonna do tomorrow. I got today done, because some days are like that, and that is okay. And the only person that puts so much pressure on you is yourself, but it comes from external sources too. But if you can focus on the Lord and just do what he has called you to do, and know that his calling for you is not heavy, um, and trust and walk with him and let go of those expectations, that would take away a lot of the pressure.
That's so important to know. And as you were saying, that verse is like he's a light, a lamp unto my feet,
Hmm.
not the
Hmm.
path, feet, meaning like
Hmm.
we're just taking one step at a time.
Exactly. Hmm.
And he lights that one step at a time. We just walk in that. And so thank you so much, Elsa, for this
Thank
coming
you.
on the show and, listening. And I loved listening to your conversation and your insight. And I know others will be inspired too.
I hope
And
so.
thank you so much for your time. I appreciate that as well.
I appreciate
And
you as well.
Thank you. And thank you all so much for listening. I hope that you too can spark hope in others' lives. And the way you can spark hope is learning to let go of those unnecessary expectations and leaning into God's purpose and plan for your life, which is to ultimately trust in Him, have peace, so that you can shine and spark hope in others. So thank you so much. Listen in next time and have a wonderful week ahead. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Medicine, Motherhood, Missions. We hope you found inspiration, insight, and a sense of connection in the stories we shared today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners like you. Follow us on Instagram for updates, free downloads, and to join a community of like-minded individuals passionate about making a difference through medicine, motherhood, and mission work. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Until next time, keep sparking hope, keep healing, keep nurturing, and keep making a difference. This is Johanna signing off from Medicine, Motherhood, Missions. The medical opinions expressed on this podcast are for the informational purposes only and should not be considered as medical advice. Always consult a licensed healthcare provider for personal medical questions or concerns. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of the podcast host.